Hi, in this video I'll take a look at 16 new Roman Szmal watercolors. At first glance, a few colors seemed very similar to past releases, including PP28, Cobalt Sea Blue, which is close to Cobalt Teal PG50, but this one leans slightly more towards blue than green. There's a new Shadow Violet Light made up of a different mix than the original, but it is a very close match aside from having a lighter mass tone. Both regular and deep versions of Perylene Green are quite similar with a near black mass tone. The deep version looks a touch warmer and is made from an unusual pigment ingredient, PBK32, instead of the more common PBK31. Be prepared that these professional grade honey-based paints tend to be very sticky in the pan. Some colors are more problematic than others. It seems worse with recently released colors that were just freshly made. They are so stuck to the packaging that even an hour in the freezer won't help them firm up enough to cleanly release them from the wax paper liner. Over time, these seem to firm up in the pan more as they dry out. This brand typically has a high pigment load and offers more granulating colors than other companies, aside from Daniel Smith, which they appear to be working on catching up to in catalog similarity. This release added two new color separating mixtures, Misty Morning, which I think will be a fan favorite, so I'll show you how to mix it yourself later in the video, and Shadow Violet Light. They also added several rare mineral pigments like Lapis Lazuli, Malachite, and Vivianite. You may recognize Aquarius Brown as Daniel Smith's Lunar Brown. They've also added a Potter's Pink, which is useful as a granulating dull pink, otherwise limited to just a handful of other major brands. Glauconite is rare, and I can see why. The streaky, gritty particles were like trying to paint with sludge, and I'm struggling to think of an appropriate use for this color. The Lapis Lazuli was one of the weakest paints I have ever seen. At best, looking like you diluted ultramarine blue with some dirty palette water. This was put to shame by Daniel Smith's version, which was nicer, but I also don't recommend because of how weak it is in comparison to buying the much cheaper PP29. I'll compare the colors that have a close match in Daniel Smith's catalog in a moment. Unfortunately, I have noticed some colors are very weak and several are just chemically unstable. I don't think that these problematic pigments should be offered as professional paints. A big problem with Vivianite and Malachite specifically, both of which Daniel Smith discontinued making years ago, is that they are prone to yellowing over time. This can happen due to air pollutants, pH levels, being mixed with or even near your other paints, such as nickel in PY150 or the sulfur in your PP29. This yellowing process can start due to exposure from how they were handled during manufacturing. This means that even though a paint is labeled as light fast, it can still have color changes because it's unstable from something other than sunlight. Malachite is a beautiful granulating pale green color I've collected from several brands. In about 6 months to a year, depending on how it's stored, it starts to go bad in the pan. Paul Rubens has it in a tube, which seems to prolong its shelf life, but in general, watercolor paints stay good indefinitely, so this is a very odd occurrence. When poured into a pan, the unused paint actually starts to yellow and develop gritty brownish chunks. I knew about this, but planned to use up this new pan of malachite while it was still in its original pale green color. I was sad to see that this has already started to yellow. I'll show how malachite looks before and after it changes. Roman Szmal's PG50 Cobalt Teal is a dull, gently granulating, finer particle version of this color that does not have much texture or salt reaction. You'll have the closest replica of the Misty Morning color when using this brand's Cobalt Teal, but the cool red is not as important to be specifically PV19 nor this brand. Because PR209 and PR122 both dilute pink, you could try mixing the teal with any Quin Cherry, Coral, Permanent Rose, or Magenta you might already have. I was pleasantly surprised with White Knight's Cobalt Turquoise PB28 as an alternative to Teal BG50 because it promoted bright blue color separation and was quite beautiful to watch as it separated out while drying. Daniel Smith's Cobalt Teal Blue is the most granulating PG50 I own, and it seemed very harsh and strong for replicating this particular mix. Because similar mixtures could be made with any cool red and a Cobalt Teal or turquoise, try what you have first. You may find that you like your custom mixture more than buying this convenience color. Having these colors individually on your palette is extremely useful for other mixtures as well. I'm currently putting together a list of all my favorite single pigment colors for building a custom palette suited for recreating color separating mixtures like this. I'll cover it in a video once I'm done, but if you'd like to see my progress, you can find the list on my website. Despite there being a few colors I did not like, I will say that more than a few are worth owning, especially if they are easier for you to obtain than Daniel Smith. Many of these seemed a bit dull and weaker than the Daniel Smith versions, but they are also more affordable. The Glauconite is extremely useful for sand, shells, and landscapes. It's a touch more yellow and flows differently enough compared to Daniel Smith's version that I'm glad I collected both. I can see the combination of Glauconite, Sea Blue, and Misty Morning being great for depicting dawn light on a beach. I'll use this trio for the gradient on the seashells in my shorebird painting. Misty Morning is also reasonably easy to lift, making it ideal for erasing lines with a damp brush to mimic beams of sunlight. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the new colors. Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to see more, you can find all of my detailed swatch card images, results from my independent light-fast testing, and other art supply reviews on my website. I'm currently building a huge pigment database where thousands of colors can be compared side by side with paint from other brands. Updates about this project, along with line art drawings and high-res color scans, are also available on Patreon. Thanks for watching.